Dobrodošli u 21. epizodu podcasta. Današnja epizoda bit će potpuno snimljena na engleskom zato što imam jednog specijalnog gosta. Jedan roditelj koji dolazi iz Amerike i koji će pričati o nečemu što se dogodilo njegovom sinu i jednom velikom gubitku. Tako da ja se napred izvinjam na mom engleskom koji nije savršen, ali verujem da ćete uspeti da razumete poruku koja je zaista potrebna da se čuje. So on December 1989 was born a boy named Ryan. Ryan was a gentle and very sensitive soul and had difficulties fitting in a school. During his school life, he was a bully from kids because of his kindness and gentleness. When he was 13, he died from suicide. My guest is Ryan's father, John Halligan, who dedicated his life to spread awareness of the dangers of bullying. John, hello and welcome, and thank you in advance for everything that you've done.
I appreciate that, Mara. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share Ryan's story with the children and parents of Serbia. I'm hopeful we'll reach the hearts and minds of many today, so I really appreciate this.
I'm sure you will. The problem here is that we don't have so many brave parents who are aware of that problem and who are dedicated to point on that problem and to use all their suffer and everything to share that with other parents and other kids and everything to make this world a better place.
I appreciate that, Mara, but I was one of those parents too before this happened that I thought this was just kids being kids, and it was not that big of a deal. So I obviously learned this lesson the very hard way. And it's why I'm so dedicated to sharing Ryan's story with as many parents as I can, and with children as well.
Yes, I think that it is very important for the children to understand what the problem of the bullying is and how can it be finished at the end.
Absolutely. I think at that age, they're just too immature at times to understand, the effect that this could have on their peers. And, I think we all need to realize that every child is different. And, we have some very sweet, sensitive souls out there. And we have some pretty tough kids out there as well. And, neither one are better than the other. We just need to understand that that's the reality. And, to get those tougher kids to, rather than bully, but look out for, the more sensitive, sweet kids. Those kids can actually be heroes to the kids that need the extra support. But also parents should never be judgmental of a child for being either way. We're all just different. We all have our own unique personalities, and we're all, gifts from God. And we should just recognize that and accept that. And so that's one of the important things I always want to get across to people is that, for children, there's always an opportunity to be an upstander and not a bystander, because quite often what happens is there are those kids who are somewhere in the middle who are not mean, but they're afraid to stand up and say something when the mean kids start being mean. And, that particular audience I always want to try to reach the most, because that's the vast majority of young people. The vast majority of young people are very good people, but they don't have the skills or the experience to be able to stand up to the meanness. But if they did, they would have a huge impact, positive on the kids who need the help.
Yes, that is so right, and it is so wonderful that you are so aware of that, because they are the one who will make a difference.
Oh, absolutely. And, the important thing to understand, too, is that kids will listen to kids much more quickly than they'll listen to the adults at that age group. So what their friends and what their peers think about them is so important. It's more important than anything else when you're an adolescent. So if we embrace that reality, I think we can make a huge improvement when it comes to this particular issue. And, I think we can all live in a better world if we can plant those seeds a lot earlier with our children.
That is surely that, especially when we look at 30 years ago, the narcissistic personality is at the peak and the high, and it is a depth of empathy for 40%, and it is a really big percent when we saying it that way.
Yes, absolutely.
So, John, how was that? Because I know people here don't know about Ryan's story, so I'm sorry, because we need to invoke all those feelings and everything, and I know that it is very hard every time for you.
It's hard, but it's okay. It's actually very therapeutic for me to share Ryan's story because I get to keep Ryan's spirit alive. So let me just start from the beginning. My son, as you mentioned earlier, was a very sweet, sensitive soul from the day he was born. He was the kind of child that you could not help but hug and hold all the time. But as he grew, there started to be some concerns for Ryan. He had what we call here speech and language development delay, and he also had fine and gross motor skills development delay. So there were some, just delay issues that he was having developmentally. And we had sought out help, and he received that kind of help. So throughout his early school years, he got what we call here special education support, as well as normal education support. And it wasn't really an issue with his peers. They were still very sweet and innocent towards him and loving. So he never really got bullied about that in his early years. But as he got towards the middle school years, middle school in the United States is somewhere between, it's typically grades 6th through 8th. And so they're about age 10 or 11 to, 12 or 13. And that seems to be where the meanness switch clicks on, unfortunately, a lot of young people. And there was one particular boy in his class that kind of zeroed in on the fact that he was getting special ed support. And he started to make fun of Ryan for that. And we gave him the typical parent advice, Ryan, you just need to ignore this kid. He's looking for a response. If you don't give him a response, he'll get bored and he'll move on. And so that advice seemed to work pretty well for the most part until we got to about 7th grade, when he was about 11 or 12. And he was becoming more afraid of the kid physically bullying him than anything else. And so as a typical parent in that time frame, I thought he just needed some, resiliency or he needed some physical training so that he felt more confident to defend himself. So we did a self-defense program together midway through the 7th grade school year, and that seemed to have built up a lot of confidence in him. And unfortunately, he did end up having a fight with the kid, a physical altercation after school. It was in February of 2003 while he was still in the 7th grade. And it did not come to a conclusion because a administrator from his school had found out about the fight and had broke it up. But Ryan was feeling pretty good that he had stood up to this kid, and he felt that he would never bother him again. And so things became very quiet after that, So we thought, okay, I think we got through the hard part here, and there was no complaints or anything like that until we got towards the end of 7th grade. I had asked him one day, "How are things going?" And he surprised me, and he said, "I'm actually friends with this boy now." And I looked at him, kind of dismayed, and I said, "Ryan, why would you do that? I mean, this kid's been on your case for such a long time." And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it, Dad. He's all right now. He's not bullying me anymore. He's not such a bad guy." And so I thought, okay, I'll let him make this decision because I felt this was important for him to learn. And it seemed like it was okay. So I backed off. Now, what happened next is what I learned after my son's death. My son had a very interesting sense of humor, and he would love to tell funny stories. And he he decided to tell his new friend a story that had to do with a medical examination. I don't want to get into the details of this, but you can use your own imagination as I explain what happened next. Well, the kid took this story and he ran with it, and he spread a rumor around the school and online that my son was gay. My son then spent a lot of unproductive time behind a closed bedroom door on his computer trying to deal with the rumor. This was that time frame where, I don't know what was going on in Serbia, but in the United States, AOL Instant Messaging became a very popular chat tool here. So this is, back when they were only texting to each other using the computer before they had cell phones. So he was sort of like in a fight with this kid back and forth online during the summertime. Also, what I found out during the summertime, that he had approached the girl from the school online that summer, and he tried to get a relationship going on with her. And I think what he was thinking in his mind was that if I get a girlfriend, perhaps that would stop the gay rumor thing. Well, unfortunately, what happened was that girl ended up pretending to like him online. So she was actually doing it as a joke, and she was taking very personal conversations, and she was basically copying them and pasting them into new text messages, and she was sending them around to her friends and other kids at the school to make fun of him. And it turned out that he found out about this at the very start of the 8th grade school year. And, for obvious reasons, he was very mortified and he was very embarrassed. And what happened next is, on the last day of his life, he went up to that girl and said, "It's girls like you that make me want to kill myself." And he did. So, I spent a lot of time trying to unravel what happened here. I didn't, the way I found out about this is I worked for IBM, the computer company, and I knew a lot about computers, so I did some forensic analysis on his computer, and I found all these conversations. So there were some really hard lessons learned here. And, sort of what I want to express to you and to your audience is that, some of the important lessons here is I completely underestimated the effect of emotional type bullying. As I looked back, I looked at Ryan's situation like my own situation. And, back when I was in middle school, I had an issue with some kid who physically tried to bully me, physically tried to intimidate me. And my dad said, "Look, you got to stand up to this kid, put him in his place." And so we had a fight after school one day, and then that was the end of it. We just basically avoided each other for the rest of our lives. What happened here was completely different. I completely got blindsided. And I had a young person educate me once. He said, "Mr. Halligan, I would actually prefer to get a black eye than have somebody spread rumors about me online, because I can go to the adults, I can show them the black eye, and I'll get a response. But it's almost impossible for me to show them my bruised heart." And so that's the big difference that's going on today. And it started with the internet back in the early 2000s, and tragically, it's only gotten worse ever since.
Yes, and I think that all of us who are the parents, we are not prepared for that, because it was much easier when we were the kids to be raised and everything, and these are the days that are very hard, and to be a kid and to be a parent, because when we were the kid, bullying was only at the school, but now it is during all day, and especially in internet and everything.
Yeah, and unfortunately with the smartphones now, it's nonstop. And so, so one of the big mistakes I made back then, and I've been trying to share with parents, is that I failed to pay attention to how he was using his computer. And I failed to, have controls in place and monitoring in place, because, quite frankly, I would have caught a lot of this. And, had he spent a lot less time on his computer that last summer, I think he would have had a much healthier response to everything and a lot more opportunity to talk to mom and dad about what was going on here. So, it allowed him to escape into a world that was private and secret from us, and we were just not aware of what was going on. And so I think these cell phones now, these smartphones, have made it even much more worse in that regard. Because most parents, they're clueless. They have no idea what their kids are up to and who are they talking to and how things are going so wrong with those devices. And quite often it happens, when they do find out, it's tragically at times too late. So that's a big problem as well.
Yes, it is. I see it and here also. And I'm on the TikTok, trying to make some impact to kids. And I see how angry they are and how rude they can be, even when they have only 9 and 10.
Yeah, and the sad thing about this is that young age should not even be on TikTok. I don't know what the laws are in Serbia, but in the United States, technically you're supposed to be 13 years and older. And I'm not even too sure if 13 is the right age. But even in the United States, we have problems with parents letting very young people have access to things that they're just not ready for. They don't have a mature enough brain to handle it, and they're obviously immature in their response. And if you let that start at a very early age, it's going to be basically a habit that's going to be hard to break as they continue to grow. I mean, they're going to think that's just normal behavior.
Yes. And I see that even if the kid doing something good, using TikTok for something good, to share some nice videos and everything, those kind of kids who likes to bully others, they will use whatever just to try to bully you. I know because of my own experience with my daughter, because all those videos I doing with my daughters, like mother and daughter video. And the first day that one of the video went viral, and when she went to school, all of them recognized her, and she came back home crying.
Oh.
She was like, please delete it. I said, let's talk about it. Why? We've done nothing bad. That is very good, because we was sharing how parents talking with the kids and how they should talk with the kids. So I was talking with her and I tell her, but you do wonderful job, We can help the parents and the kids to understand each other and to how to prevent some misunderstanding and everything. And after that, she was like, okay, and she was better with that. But every time when we post a video, I see some rude comments like, oh, she's so skinny, oh, why she's wearing those kind of sneakers, or something like that. So, but every time I respond on those kind of the comments, and from a perspective of the parent, but not just to protect her, but just to point them that it's not something that they should be bothered of. Because one boy, he was like, oh, how old she is, why she is wearing the sneakers with, I don't know how I can say it on the English, but you have sneakers without the, you need to help me, John. Without ties.
With the labels or something, or the brand?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
So they make fun of that, and I was like, it's not something that needs to be fun of.
No, I'm so out of touch because I grew up in the 70s, and there was no such thing as labels back then. I got the very generic white sneakers, the fabric basic sneaker. It was nothing. It just wasn't a thing. So yeah, as time went on, and I know because I'm aware of teenagers today, if you have Adidas or Nike or whatever, it's so important, which is just dumb.
Yes, for them that seems to be very important what they wear. Yes, but they don't think about how they treat others and themselves. And for me, your story is especially important, the part of when you was saying about the boy who after became a friend with Ryan and used that. Because my daughter has the same situation now. And she's like a good with that girl. And I all the time told her, no, she's not your friend. She can't be a friend when she was using 1.5 years to bullying you constantly. And she all the time was like, Mom, why don't you like her? I said, because the things she done to you. But I need to let you to, maybe that is not good. I don't know what, should I let her to see her by herself that she's not her friend?
It's tough because, part of my message too is forgiveness. And we did forgive the 2 children involved. And the girl especially, she grew up to be a very sweet young adult. And to this day, she would tell you that she still very much regrets what she did to Ryan and is still very haunted by it. So, so I do believe in redemption, and people can turn themselves around and change. And so, in that particular situation, I would just work on, helping that girl become a better person. So, your daughter probably has a very big heart and sees that opportunity, perhaps.
Yes, she all the time told me, but Mom, people can't change,
But you also need to be cautious, So,
cautious, yes.
Yeah. So I think this is very important life skills to be learned and for you to teach your child. Because as we know as adults, there are some people who are very real and honest, and they do change, but then there are people who are very deceptive. So, and that's just the way the world is, so we're never going to completely fix that. So a level of awareness and skills to deal with that, I think are important. But again, there's a part of me that always wants to help people become better people. So I give people second and third chances all the time. So that's just, the way I deal with this stuff. Yeah. But it's unfortunate that kids at this age, they're still very materialistic and very shallow in their way of thinking quite often. Not all of them, but,
Yes, a lot of them, especially now when they are using social media, because they would do whatever it takes just to have more likes and more followers. So everything is about that.
It's ridiculous.
And but the ones who likes those rude comments are the bystanders.
That's true.
So they are the ones who are just supporting those kind of behavior.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So again, I think that's where the education needs to occur, is with the bystanders. So it's interesting. I don't know if they're addressing this in the school in Serbia, but a lot of schools in the United States, because we passed laws in the United States to address bullying, and that's one of the things I did in Ryan's memory, is I got Vermont, the state of Vermont, to pass a law to get the schools to take this more seriously and try to bring into the education these issues of kindness and how to stand up for each other. So, I think one of the important things that schools can do is to make some time during the school day to give that lesson about the role of bystanders, and to give them an opportunity to practice the skills and the language that they need to navigate those situations and to handle them more appropriately. Because I think I think most kids want to be a hero. They want to be that person who's doing good and standing up for others. I think that's inherent in our nature. I don't think they're inherently evil and mean. They're just, at times
wrong role models.
Yeah, it's just the wrong. Exactly. It's all about role models, and that's where it's important for parents to role model. Because quite often what happens here in the United States, and it's probably in almost every country, is the parents too often set a bad example. So they're kind of bullies themselves, and how they treat not only children but also their peers. We've seen this on the internet. There's so much examples probably on TikTok, but also and what's popular here is Twitter. the meanness that occurs among adults is incredible. So, so we got to start. That's another place to start with. Is role models need to be improved for our children.
Yes, there is one sentence, like a friend of mine who was my guest also. He is the father of 6 kids. And he was, we were talking about parenting and everything. And one sentence is very good because he said when parents fix themselves, the kids will change.
Yes.
So everything is...
right.
About our parents.
Yeah, it is. And so the bystander thing applies to parents as well, because, you'll quite often see, even in the workplace, you'll have a manager or a boss that will be very, they'll be very aggressive, or they'll be bullies themselves on how they deal with their employees. And I think, to turn this culture around, we need to be not so accepting of that behavior either. That there are examples. I mean, I worked for IBM, the computer company, and our culture changed over time. And, upper level management started to learn that you don't need to be mean to get things done. There are much more thoughtful ways to manage people and still get a lot of productivity out of them. And so, the smart ones do it that way. And overall, people feel better about coming to work. They feel happier. They feel more gratified. And so, the same thing would happen to our children if we approached their lives the same way. You don't have to, to get your way, you don't have to be mean. You can actually just win people over, in a very kind way.
Especially that kids are very, they appreciate very much when parents talk with them like equal. So that is very important, to speak with them with respect and
yes.
kindness. Yes, and that is something that I see that parents here do not use, because they think kids, they are small, we are the older, and I need to talk with you from below. And so that is one of the big problem here. So I think kids here are used to bullying, because they have it in their families.
Yeah, and and it was a big part of our culture too. I mean, it's I recall just growing up, it was like that. Parents, were pretty rough with us, and I think in general it wasn't as detrimental as it is today, because we didn't have the internet back then. So it wasn't like 24/7, So I don't think we really paid much attention to the issue back then, because you didn't see it on display right in front of you like you do today. So I think the fact that we're being forced to look at it now and see it right in our face almost every day, and have so many stories every day in the news, it's raised it's raised a lot of awareness that perhaps this wasn't the best way to treat each other. But I think what also, Mara, what's going to happen over time is, I think this generation coming through, I'm hopeful that they'll be better parents at this than we were, because they would have lived right firsthand. So I think they're going to have a completely different skill set, and I think it's all going to be for the better. And so as parents, I think we're still trying to catch up to what's really going on, because I mean, I'll talk for myself. I had zero experience with social media, because it didn't exist when I was a kid. So
of course,
yeah.
Because of that, our kids will be better parents. They are raised with the social medias and everything. They know about threats, about everything what can be done there on the social medias, and they will know how to, and when is the time for their kids to use the social media.
Exactly, right. I think a lot of kids today are probably shaking their heads going, I can't believe my parents let me do this stuff. I will never let my child do what I'm doing right now.
I'm sure they're thinking like that.
It's funny, because when I tell parents, I give them advice, one of the things I say to them is, your kid is going to feel a lot better if you pay more attention to them. You know, like just turning a blind eye to it and not paying attention to what they're doing, they feel kind of, unsafe, quite frankly, and on their own, and they don't feel so secure. So you might think you're being the cool parent by letting them do whatever they want, but they're actually craving for some guidance and some, I call it guardrails, like guardrails on the side of a road. They just want some sense of safety. And so...
because of that, they need to have clear borders. I'm saying right.
Yes, right.
I'm sure that you will understand me.
To boundaries.
Know what is boundaries. Yes, boundaries. What is correct and what is not correct. What can they do and what not. So they need it to be very clearly and specific about it. Absolutely.
And so I think as parents, when they start to realize this and start to pay more attention, the response from the child may be negative at first because they're not used to being monitored or checked. But then as time goes on, they start to feel a bit better about it. So I've ran into a lot of students who have, the so-called mean parents, and they're actually very grateful that their parents have rules in place. So, so the other problem that quite often occurs here in the United States is kids are allowed to be on their phones all night long, which is, just from a sleep point of view is unhealthy. So they're not getting a good night's sleep. So
that is the same here. I have that problem with my kids. So I'm very aware of that.
Yes.
And every time when it was like, but all the kids are doing that. Why don't you, I'm sorry, let us doing it and everything. So it is very, very big problem.
And it's, they need 8 hours of sleep at least. Children need more sleep than the adults do because their brains are developing very fast and they're physically going through a lot of changes. So, not getting a good night's sleep is just not good for them overall. They're not going to perform at their best academically if they're not getting a good night's sleep. So, so I don't know if what are the popular smartphones in Serbia? Is it iPhones or is it like Samsungs? What is a popular phone there?
Well, some of kids, they are having iPhone, but not so much of them. But usually it is Huawei. I think that Huawei is most popular here.
So I'm not familiar with that particular type of phone, but I know with the iPhone, the parents have a lot of parental controls now, so you can set
on this also, yes.
Oh, good. So parents need to take advantage of that. So, there are ways to, for the phones, you just stop working at, I don't know, whatever time you want to pick, 9 o'clock.
And kids now are very smart and they know how to remove that.
Okay.
I know because my son all the time done it. His father put his everything and daughter, she don't know how to do that. So when it's time for bed, she can't use her phone anymore. Well,
then you just need to physically take the phone at night.
That is the only way.
Okay, so that's the other option is all the phones go to the parents' bedroom at night. And you'll charge them up for them is what you'll do.
And that is really very, very important because I see how that is the big problem with my kids. Well, I'm divorced, so when they are with their father and the parents of their fathers, they stay up all night long because that is the way of their lifestyle. So
yes, I can imagine it's a challenge for divorced parents because you have parents with two different sets of rules and different approaches and
exactly.
Yes, I can understand that could be a big problem too.
Yes. So now I was talking with them and I was like, when did you go in bed? And they were like, about 3-4 o'clock. And I was like, no. And they were like, okay. When the school starts, we will change it.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That's crazy. Okay.
So kids these days are awake till very late hour.
So then they sleep until 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yes.
The whole life is being wasted away on a stupid device, It's just...
And that is so unhealthy.
So unhealthy. It should be obvious to most people, right? It's just psychologically not healthy.
It's not healthy for us neither. So we can think what impact has on their brain that type of lifestyle.
Right. Yeah. Not good.
Not good at all.
So Ryan's situation, I was trying to sound the alarms back in 2003, even before all this started to come online. The parents, you got to pay a lot more attention. Things can go wrong very fast behind your back, on a device. So the other thing I always recommend to parents is make sure you have access to the phone itself, so... Again, I don't know how it works with the phones you have in Serbia, but with the iPhone, the parents can set it up so they can't change the passcode on the phone. So the parents should know the passcode to the phone, right? Because I'll give you a sad story. Just recently during this COVID lockdown, there was a Vermont student who had killed himself. Things went wrong on social media, and that's all he had because they were locked down and not allowed to go to school. And things went bad, unfortunately, and this young person killed himself, and the parents were frustrated because they could not get into his phone because they did not have the passcode, and so they were at a loss of trying to figure out what had happened here. And eventually it took some time, but I put them in the right, I connected them with the right person who knew how to break into phones so that they could eventually find out what happened. But it was, it delayed a lot of time, and it was very frustrating to the parents. And they realized that, again, this is a hard lesson learned, that, there could be things that just go wrong and may not even be, as tragic as my story, but, your child is missing or something, and all you have is their phone left in the room. And if you can't access it, you're going to be very frustrated. So parents should have access to their kids' phones. That's, to me, the bottom line. I always say to parents, look, it's your phone, so you need to tell your child that phone is actually my phone. I bought it. I'm paying the bills for it every month, right? You do not have a job. I'm the one with the job paying the bills. Until you until you grow up and be able to go into a store and buy your own phone, then at that point you can have all the privacy you want. But until then, that's my phone. It's in my name, and I want to make sure you don't do anything that's embarrassing to the family name. So I have to make sure that phone's being used appropriately. So you just tell them right up front. The other thing I say to parents is I'm not an advocate of spying, so I don't think you should snoop around and spy on your child. You should just be very upfront with them and say, look, that's my phone, and I'm going to pick it up at times, and I'm going to look at it. And so just don't do anything stupid with the phone that might embarrass you, and everything will be perfectly fine. So just tell them straight up.
Yes, the one thing that we need to be aware is that the lot of games that we see like nothing harmful for our kids can be, because they have chats inside of the video games.
That's true.
I speak this from my own experience. So because of that, I know I just make a good decision based off my feeling, because I just felt that something isn't wrong, and I just asked for the phone, and I saw that, and I know for that video game, but I was like, oh, just like dolls, you put clothes on them, and it was nothing harmful, nothing. But when I get in chat, you can see so many bad things there.
Yes, I can imagine. There's probably a lot of inappropriate adults in that space too, trying to prey on the kids. That's been a problem from the very beginning of the internet, and it's probably only gotten worse, because they have all these different avenues now, like what you just discussed, the game that could look so innocent could be a very big problem as well. It's unfortunately it's gotten much more challenging and unfortunately much more worse since Ryan's death. But I refuse to give up. I think every
Never
parent,
give up.
so I look at this as, if I could change one child or one parent's attitude, the ripple effect of that is so huge. And that could put a life on a different course. And, who would not want to have that opportunity if it was presented to you? So that's what I find most rewarding about what I do. Every time I go to a school, in the United States, typically an audience size in a school could be somewhere between 500 and 1,000 students, all at once. And to have that opportunity, I know statistically I'm not going to reach every single child, but I'm going to reach quite a few.
Yes.
And their attitude before they came to see me and after could be changed dramatically and have such a huge effect.
Do they approach to you after your speech?
So let me tell you how I got started on this. So, after Ryan's death, I focused on the law. So that was my way of dealing with this therapeutically. And unfortunately, I did it too quickly. So something I thought would keep me occupied for a couple of years, perhaps, I actually got that done in about 6 months. And so then I was left with, trying to get back into work and trying to get back to life somehow. And it was just far too difficult. But fortunately, about 2 years after my son's death, it was May of 2005, I received a call from a guidance counselor at a high school. And she went on about how they were going to have some kind of respect day assembly. And the students they were looking for a keynote speaker for their assembly, for their presentation. And they had read about me because I was in the newspaper quite a bit in that time frame when I was working on the law. And so their idea was to have me come and tell Ryan's story. And I didn't want to do it. I had no idea how to talk to students. I told the lady, "Look, I'm an engineer at IBM. I'm not a motivational speaker. I mean, how do you even go about doing this?" And she convinced me to just do whatever feels natural. There's no real expectations here. They would just love to hear what you have to say. And so I reluctantly agreed. I put together a video of Ryan as a way of introducing Ryan to them. And so when I got there, I played the video first. I said, before I say anything, I just want you to meet Ryan. And it was amazing. It was about 3 minutes long, but it it definitely touched them right away. They could hear and see they could hear his voice and see him. And they knew that he was no longer with us. So then I got up and I told his life story the best way that I could. And quite frankly, it wasn't my best presentation, but I just spoke from the heart and I just explained what happened. And then I explained how I thought things could be done differently. And at the end, I got a standing ovation. And I thought, okay, I guess I did a good job. And I left. What happened amazingly after a few months is I got an email from a student who had heard me, and she was now away at, I don't know how you say it in Serbia, college or university, but in any case, she was away to the next level of school. And she started off by saying, "Mr. Halligan, you probably didn't expect to do this, but you changed my life forever." And she went on to say that she felt compelled to go up to certain girls after the presentation and apologize to them for all the bad things that she had said and done to them back in middle school, back 3 years earlier. And she said, that made me feel so much better about myself as a person, and it made me ready to become an adult. And she just wanted to thank me for that. And as you can imagine, I was in tears when I read that. And I thought, wow, I had no idea that Ryan's story would affect somebody that strongly.
And I need to keep going on.
And so I need to keep going on. So what happened was the following school year, by word of mouth, other schools heard about what I had done, and they wanted me to do the exact same thing at their school. And so I still was working for IBM, but IBM was very kind to let me do this as a volunteer. And so I started to go to more and more schools. And then what happened in 2006 is I was on national TV. There's, I don't know if they're familiar with her in Serbia, but Diane Sawyer is a very popular news anchor here. And she had a program called Prime Time with Diane Sawyer. And she did a whole episode on what happened to Ryan. And she actually interviewed the girl, too, that was involved. And that had a huge effect on the audience. And there was a little bit in there about me speaking at schools. And because of that, I got requests from around the country. Can you please come to my school and tell Brian's story to my kids? And I had a hard time replying because I said, I don't do this for a living. I'm an engineer. I can't just get up and go to schools every day. And so I did a few more like that. And then I was on the Oprah Winfrey show in 2009. And then what happened was my inbox exploded with emails from all over the place, including Canada and Mexico. And so at that point, I made a decision to leave IBM and to do this full time. So I took a risk, and I became very busy at that point. So I'm proud to say that I've been to over 2,000 schools at this point, mostly in the United States. I've reached over 1 million students at this point, and countless parents as well. And the response continues to be just as strong as the very first time. So I continue to hear about kids apologizing to other kids after I leave. But even more important than that, I hear of stories of young people who were feeling just the way Ryan was, and they decided to go to their counselor and ask for help. And for the first time, they've shared with an adult that they had been feeling suicidal.
Oh, when you mentioned that they reach to help, ask for help, that is very important, because here, let's say that is taboo to go to psychologists to talk, because everybody will say that you are crazy or something like that. So that is one really big thing that kids need to understand, that that is very helpful, and that if they need some help, they need to reach for the help.
Yes, so that's been an ongoing campaign here in the United States, is to what we would say destigmatize mental health, because quite frankly, we culturally had the same problem here about 20 years ago, where it was a sign of weakness, to ask for help or to admit that you're not feeling well mentally. And there was not a lot of tolerance by a lot of people, because physical illness you can sympathize with. You can see somebody is physically sick, or they've got a handicap, or they're they're mentally challenged in terms of special education, and there's a lot of sympathy for that. But when it comes to I'm just not feeling good inside, there's a lot of impatience with that, unfortunately. And I think it's still a bit of a problem to this day, that there's a sense that, come on, just pull yourself together, you need to toughen up.
Yes, put a smile on your face, do not cry when you want to cry.
Right.
Yes.
But we're getting better at that, I think, as we move on. But so the other thing I do talk about a lot with parents is, I think, so one of the things I always make a point at the end of my presentation is that Ryan was a very sweet, sensitive soul, and I loved the quality about him. I would never have changed it, but I should have recognized it more and embraced it more, and also recognized that he needed reinforcement a lot more. So I think it's very important for parents to be honest about who is their child when it comes to this, and not be so much judgmental or trying to change them completely, or reprogram them, but just understand where are they at this point in their life, and then, research what you need to do to help them get through what will be their most difficult point in their life, which will be adolescence. And so I think we need to work our best to get them through that very difficult point, because God knows we need more sweet, sensitive souls in the adult world. We just got to help them get there. And I think one of the ways of helping them get there is to spend a lot of time on resiliency and coping strategies and reinforcement and a lot of conversation. I think, you have to just pay a lot more attention to their needs and not look at it as a weakness, but just the fact that that's the nature of who they are. But they're gonna be wonderful adults, no doubt. They're gonna be a wonderful parent. They're gonna be a wonderful boss because of those qualities that they have. It's not gonna hold them back. It's not gonna make them weak. It's not gonna set them back. But unfortunately, adolescence is just a very, very difficult time in everybody's life, Even for me back, in the 70s, adolescence was a difficult thing because everyone was just so insecure about who they were. And so the easiest thing was to just be mean to other people, to try to, present yourself as being stronger.
Yes, and that is the problem, because when somebody is the mean, that means that he is the strong. And if somebody is the kind, that means that he is the weak. So those are the mixed things.
But the statistics and the studies often show that those kids who continue to be that way end up having problems later on in life. They're the ones who end up being very abusive to their spouse, or they have a drug or drinking problem, or even get involved with criminal activity. So it's not the best path for them to be on.
It's not, but we adults, we need to show them where those kind of behavior will lead them. What is the only path where they can go if they don't change those kind of behavior?
Yes, right. And again, we got to get back to the audience, the bystanders.
Yes.
They can shape everything. Have such a positive impact.
Yes, it is something that you also mentioned about the heroes.
Yes.
We need them to be the heroes.
Yes.
Who will stand up for the weakers.
Absolutely.
John, I'm so grateful for this conversation, and I'm so grateful that parents here and their kids would be able to hear Ryan's story, because it's not the same when someone came who is the psychologist to talk what you need to do, what not. But this is something what is the real, something what happens, and because of that they can engage with all this story.
Yes.
And I'm sure that it will have a big impact, not for all, but if it has, like you said, only for one parent or for only one child, it is success.
Absolutely. That's how we change the world, one person at a time.
Yes. And that is very important to know. Do you have some message to the end to share?
Well, so I wanted to just take the opportunity, if to make sure your audience is aware that I do have 2 books published.
I know that one published company from Serbia reached to you for translation, yes, and publishing your books. So I'm.
Are the children there fluent in English, or they become more fluent?
Yes.
Well,
yes,
then good, because
much.
then this book is written for students.
Oh, wonderful.
All right, so I have a student version. It's in English and it's available on Amazon. So, perhaps we can get this into the hands of young Serbian people. And it's an opportunity to practice their English. So,
yes.
And then I have
sure.
and this particular version's for parents. So perhaps I should focus on translating this book first. But this was a book that I wrote for parents.
Can you just share the titles for our audio?
Yes. So the title, both titles are the same. The main titles. This is Ryan's story, but this is a father's hard-earned lessons about cyberbullying and suicide. So that's the parent version. The student version, different cover, same title, Ryan's story, but the subtitle is Loved Beyond Belief. And I just want to say also that every student audience that I speak to, I always make that point that they're all loved beyond belief. That there's nobody in this room that doesn't love you, and that you're not loved. And so I think that's an important message, because I think especially the kids who are starting to feel suicidal, they feel very alone, they feel neglected, and sometimes you can get trapped into thinking that way, but that's not the truth. The truth is that there's always somebody out there that cares deeply about you. And I think if Ryan had realized that more so, he would have never done what he had done, because I think he lost sight of the fact that I loved him more than you can imagine.
Yeah, I'm totally sure that he wouldn't have done what he has done. But like you said, the kids, when they are in that state of the sadness and loneliness, they can't see through that pain and everything.
Yes. Thank you so much, Bara, for this opportunity.
Thank you, John, so much. I'm so grateful for this conversation and for all this emotion that you shared with us. But because I think that the emotions are the most important to reach to the parents, to the people at all, because they feel emotions.
Yes.
and what is honest.
No, and I don't think there will ever be a parent that could ever imagine being in this predicament, and clearly would never want to be. And so I think if they open their minds and their hearts and really embrace what I had to share today, they would understand that they need to take this issue very seriously.
I count on that feeling for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hvala vama puno na slušanju. Podsjetit ću vas samo, ukoliko želite da podržite ovaj podcast, možete to učiniti tako što ćete postati Patreon član ili podržati neke od mojih profila na društvenim mrežama. Ostanite ljubazni i hrabri.